Hello, this is Mr. Doty, and we're going to try something different. I'm going to use a different recording media program, and we'll see how this goes. Okay, I have the webcam set up, and I have the drawing that we're going to work on shown. And we're going to be using AutoCAD, and I have my template set up on AutoCAD. This is 2020, but it doesn't really matter. It's all AutoCAD. So this is a metric drawing, and there are a couple of differences in metric drawings as far as size and how things are set up. So anyway, let's get going and see what we can do. So the first thing we do is we want to start a drawing. Now, if you click on templates here, then you want to use your template that you've previously made, which here's mine, and that's what we want to do. Now, after you've opened up the same template 2 or 3 times, if you hit start drawing, it's going to automatically go to that template. Just something to remember. But for right now, I'm not sure if it will, so I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to start a new drawing. Okay, so first things first, on AutoCAD doesn't really care about units as far as, what's an inch, what's a millimeter. When you draw something in AutoCAD, if you compared a metric and inch drawing, the metric drawing is 25.4 times bigger than the inch drawing is. It doesn't matter if you were to convert, if you were thinking of comparing and converting your measurements. In AutoCAD, it's a scale, and it's 25.4 is the difference. So as far as it goes in AutoCAD for what we're going to do here, we have our template, we have our inch and our metric layouts, which we're going to use metric. We have our layers set up here. We have our 0 layer, center, dim, hidden, object, phantom, text, all that good stuff. We've talked about, you want to check your units, which if you're just doing mechanical drawings and you're doing inch and metric, this is all you need. The only time you ever change this is if you need to recognize feet, and then you'd pick architectural. So, but you do want to think about your units, so I've thought about my units. I don't need to change it. The next thing I need to think about are my limits, and my lower corner is always 0, 0. My upper corner is 12, 9. Well, let's look at our problem we're going to work on. It is 110 wide or long. It is 55 deep, and it appears to be about 85 tall or high. That's not going to fit in my little area here. Now you're thinking, well, you just zoom out. Well, yes and no. The way our zoom works, whenever you use your scroll button in and out, it is looking at your limits as an idea of how much area it can zoom in and out of, easily. And for some reason, if you don't set your limits up, and it doesn't have to be exact, but if you don't adjust your limits, your zoom can end up being goofy and not working right and frustrating, which is something that we don't need. So basically what you do is you take, what I like to do is I just make a square. I just look at how wide are the views that I need. If you were to look at, and I don't know if it's going to pull it up or not, but it may show my mouse, it may not. But you'll see on the screen, it shows that it's 110 wide and it's 55 deep. Well, on your front view, you'll see the 110. The side view, which is going to be a right side view, even though it shows the left over here more so, you're going to do a right side view. I guarantee I'll get somebody who gives me a left, and that's okay. If it's drawn right, it's fine. It's just not the exact, it's just different. It's not wrong, it's just different. Well, it's not 100% wrong, let's just put it that way. Yeah, whatever. So you take your width and you take your depth and you add those together. That's how wide of an area I need. So I need 55 and 110. That's 165. So if I think about it, I'll just make it, maybe I'll just make it 200 by 200, just so that I have plenty of room. So I'm going to, and you're like, well, how did you come up with that number? I like to round things off to even. And I mean, you could have put in 175 by 175 and it would have been fine. I was just, making it an even 100 and going from there. So I put that in. Now, the step that people forget is, oh, hey, I set my limits, great. But guess what? You're not zoomed out to the limits. So if you start drawing, your lines may not be, they may go off the screen and you're like, oh, crap, where'd it go? So what you do is you do a zoom all, Z, enter, A for all, enter, and that will zoom you out to your limits that you've set, or a facsimile thereof. Okay, so let's get down to it. I've spent enough time going over the setups. I want to make sure I'm on the object layer because I'm going to draw. What I like to do is I like to figure out how big of an area I need, not for drawing, but how big are my views. So I said I was going to do a front, a top, and a right side view on this one. Okay, so I look at the side, and I like to make a box. So basically, I'm going to go to a rectangle, and I'm going to pick a starting point. We'll go over in a second some other things that I like to have set up, just in case you haven't thought about this ahead of time. So I'm going to draw this rectangle real quick. It's going to be 110 wide, so I'm just going to type in, as long as you've got dynamic turned on, you don't need to put in the @ symbol. It's going to be 110, comma. My y is going to be 50 plus 35, which is 85, if I did my addition correctly, and enter. Alright, so my front view should fit inside of this box. And you're like, okay, why don't I just start drawing the front view? Well, okay, there's a method to my madness. When I learned how to do this, we drew by hand. We had to figure out spacing on paper so we could keep things centered. And to me, if you figure out where your item, your views, fit inside of a box, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to draw the views. Because you don't just draw one view and then go to the next view and draw the next view and then go to the third view and draw. No, that's not how it works. Or that's not the best way, most efficient way to do it. Let's just put it that way. You can do that, but sometimes it's easy to project things from one view to another. Alright, so moving along, so there's my front view part. Now something that, as far as setup is, there's my dynamic, it's on. If that doesn't show up on yours, again, you should have already done my other video, which covers an inch drawing, and I show you this as well. But I'm going to go over it again, just so that everybody's, clear, and, repetition helps. So if you click on the lines, you make sure that anything that is checked on this list over here will show up down here in this box, just like just like units. If I wanted units to show up, and see, now it shows me that I have my units, and see, then I can just check, and hey, that's kind of nice to have. But anyway, all of these are on there, they're fine. That does not mean that they're turned off or on, okay? That does not mean if they're off, that's not their state. That just means they show up down here. I don't know why people have a hard time figuring that out. It does not turn it off or on. It just makes it show up. If it is darkened in, at least in 2020, if it's darkened in, then it's on. So here's the things that I have turned on. The grid doesn't matter. I just have it as a background. I don't use it. I don't use Snap. They're just really annoying and I don't like them. I have dynamic on. I do not use ortho because it only goes up and down and left and right. I use polar. You know, your old school people, they use ortho, but here I'm old school, and I've adapted and overcome because I think this is a really good tool because I can set this to lock. It'll keep moving, but it's like a little detent. It'll lock every however many, degrees, 15, 18, 22 and a half, 30s. 15 works really well, so I have mine set on 15. So that's polar. Make sure it's on. You want polar tracking on. That just goes along with the polar. It helps it work better. It also goes along with your object snaps. Now, we've already covered object snaps, or we should have. Hopefully you have, depending on whoever's watching this video. So as a review, I only turn on the ones that I think are important. Some people tell you just turn them all on. Well, you can have too much of a good thing, in my opinion. And that's my opinion, and I'm welcome to have it, and other people can have their own. What I do and why I do it is these are the important ones to me. Extension, apparent intersection, intersection, center, midpoint, and endpoint. Those you use all the time. If I want something to be tangent, I'm either going to type in TAN, enter, and use it, or I'm going to shift right click and pick it. Hold down shift, right click your mouse, a little mouse menu pops up, and you can select what you want for your object snap. And I never use nearest. That one's dumb. I mean, what's the point? Nobody can ever, I don't think anybody could ever explain the merits of using nearest, but that's fine. And parallel and perpendicular, typically, if I want them, I want to type them in because I have a specific time I want to use them. Now, sometimes I will turn on quadrant, or I may turn on node if I'm using certain things where I know I'm going to be, picking those a lot, and they can be helpful, and that's fine. All right, moving along. Let's see, what do we got? Anything else down there? Nah. Okay, so let's get back to drawing. So here's our front view, or at least this is the area it takes up. Like I said, I'm going to draw a right side view, and you're like, well, why are you going to draw a right side view? Well, the reason I would draw a right side view is because on the left side view, and like I said, I'm not sure how this shows up, but if you look on your drawing, on the left hand side, you have this shape that looks like a sideways C, if you will, or upside down U. I don't know what you want to call it. But if you were to look at this from this side, this surface under here where this little L shape is, it intersects in this corner, and that line for that corner goes across underneath. Well, from here it would be a hidden line. Well, if you look at it from the other end, from the right hand side in this case, it's actually going to be a solid line because you're showing the bottom surface edge and the top edge here. Now, I understand if you're still trying to figure it out, you can't visualize this, and you just wish you had the model in your hand, which for my in-person classes, when we're able to have in-person classes, I have models that we can look at. But hopefully we can be enough to help you out. Alright, so my side view, it's going to have the same height, and then we go for the depth, which is 55. So I'm going to go up here and make me a rectangle, and I'm just going to hover. I'm not picking, I'm just hovering. This is how you use your O tracking. See, it says extension, object snap, hey. So I'm going to pick this as a starting point, and then I'm going to type in my relative coordinate, which it is deep, so that would be 55, comma 85, right, because it's 50 and 35 is 85, and there you go. So that is going to be the area that my side view takes up. Now my top view, I'm going to do the same thing, picking up a rectangle, hover, move up, pick. This one's going to be 110, comma 55. Okay, so this is the area that my views take up. The next thing I would do is I would come over here, I would draw a line, I will hover over this corner, I will hover over this corner until it says endpoint, and then it will give me an apparent intersection or a temporary point. So I pick, and I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to lock it where it says 45 degrees. As you can see, it says 45 degrees right there. If I were to hit, I could hit tab and type in 45, and that would be fine as well. So, your option. Okay, so you're like, why did you draw that line in there? This line is what we call a miter line. This is how I can project things from the side view into the top view. If I had the side view on this side, I would have the miter line over here, which is what I did in the first example that I did for the anyway, for my inch video, that's what I did. I did a left side view because that's what you need to do. It doesn't matter which side you do, as far as you have to do a left or you have to do a right. Some of the ones you're going to do may have left side views. Some of them may have right side views. Everybody wants to burn the right side view into your retina, but it doesn't have to be. What you want to do is your front view has the longest dimension of your object, where you see the most features that are not hidden, but it has the longest dimension. So the front view of this is here, and we'll flush it out here in a second. Everything is based off of your front view, and the reason that we use the longest dimension as our width is so that it fits better on our paper. Okay, it also looks a lot better. It's a lot cleaner. I could show you two different versions of it and you get it. So anyway, every other view is based off of the front. So here we go. Before I can start drawing, I am going to use my explode command, and I am going to pick my 3 rectangles, and I am going to hit enter, and I'm going to blow them up into individual lines, because I want to use my offset command. And in my front view, which I just I'm going to start on my front view. I'm not going to draw the whole thing because I'm going to move from my front view to my top view and around, and I'll show you. So you don't have to just work on one view at a time. Complete one view at a time. Let's see, it is 50 tall, so I'm going to go with 50. And I'm going to offset that up, 50. And that is the top surface of the L shape. It is 15 down. One of the things you can do with offset is, without going out and back in, you can pick your line and you can actually change the distance that you want it to be while you're in offset. So I can just keep doing that. This one is actually 20. And if that confuses you, just remember, go out of offset, go back into offset, and so like the little notch that's over here on this one, it's 20, I think, yes. And then you would just put this in, you go out, you go back in if you want to change the distance. So those are your options on offset. I'm going to use trim and pick these 2 lines and get rid of that. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and clean this one up. I don't need this line or these 2 lines anymore, because I need this, and this is the top of my view. So this is about all I can do in the front view right now. So let's move up to the top view. Well, one thing I can do is I can project this line up here as a hidden line. And you're like, why is it hidden? Well, because if I look down from the top, if you look at your example, which, like I said, I don't know if the mouse shows up or not, But if you look at your example, the top there where it says 27.5 and 35, you're going to have a hidden line running up through there because it that's just what it is. If you were to think about it, yes, there's a line underneath there. Alright, so I'm going to change this to hidden. I'm going to go to line, and I'm going to, I could draw a line from here up, or I could hover, and then where it hits, or where I run into this line here in the top view, I could just go ahead and draw my line up. Now you'll notice something. This is supposed to be a hidden line. Isn't a hidden line supposed to be dashed? Isn't it supposed to look like this? So why does it not look right? Well, first of all, it's a metric drawing. Second of all, there's a command called line type scale. LTS, line type scale. If you see that on a grade, then that means you need to go in and adjust your line type scale. If it's metric, it can be anywhere from 6 to 20. I'm going to try 12 and see what it looks like. Because think about it, your scale factor is 24.5 between inch and metric. The default that AutoCAD is kind of set up for is, you know, to kind of like inch, basically, if you were to think about it. So when you're trying to set these things up, you have to think about scale factors a little bit. Alright, so anyway, here's a hidden line for that. The next thing I have is I have this this hole right in here, and then I have this circular cylinder thing called a boss. It's a boss because it comes up from this base. So off of this base plate here, it goes up. Alright, so I need to find the center of that. Well, guess what? I'm going to draw me a line. It doesn't matter what layer I'm in, and it just so happens that these are all lined up on the center. Then I can use my offset command, and it says that from here over to here is where the center of this guy is. And then it says the next one is 80. And so there's the center of the boss, there's the center of the circle. So I need to go back and change back to my object layer. Now, what happens if you're on the wrong layer? It doesn't matter, because like if I wanted this to be a center line, let's say, and I've got it on the wrong layer, I just pick it, go up here to my little pull down, click on center, and there it is. And then you hit escape to, to get out of it. Remember, you finish your commands with enter, but if you select something and you want to unselect it, you can just hit escape to be done or get out of it, so to speak. Okay, so I want to go to, I'm in object, right? I'm going to go to circle, and I need a diameter circle, so I'm going to pick here, diameter, and I want this right here, which is that midpoint or intersection. I guess I didn't have to have the, I guess I didn't really need the center line, but whatever. So let's see, that one is 18 diameter. I'm going to go back over here and click on this, because if I hit enter, it will go back to radius, and then I'll end up with the wrong size. So I know if you're not used to it and you're thinking, oh, I'll just hit enter and go back into it. Well, if I do that, it goes to radius. Just a heads up. So sometimes it's better to use the ribbon. We're 16. I'm wanting to hit enter so bad, but I know I have to think about this and I can't do it. So I mean, I've been drawing for, I don't know, 30 some years, and I still want to hit enter, hit my space bar every time just to try. Oh yeah, I'm gonna go back into that command. Oh, wait a minute, not in the circle. Okay, so here's the boss, here's the hole in the boss, and then here's the hole in the plate. So now that I've got that drawn on there, I'm going to get rid of these, because there's another center line type, or a way of doing our center marks and center lines that I want to show you that we're going to use. And well, while we're talking about that, let's just go here. I'm going to go ahead and put them on the right layer, which is center, and you go to annotate. Notice you have these lovely two little things here. One's called center mark. Now, this is a metric drawing. So we're going to take a little pause for a second. This is a metric drawing. There is a command called center exe right here. Okay? Center exe is how you set how far this center mark and center line goes out past the edge of your geometry. Your center line does not stop at the edge of the geometry. It goes past. Because they don't want you to confuse the center line with some other kind of line, like it's part of the part or the object, okay? So for an inch, specification, 0.12 or 0.125 is perfectly fine for how far it extends past the object. Okay, in metric, it's 3. So I'm going to change center exe to 3 and hit enter. So now I'm going to go to center mark. I'm going to pick this biggest circle because that takes care of both of these, and I'm going to pick that circle right there. See? Awesome, isn't it? I love it. It's great. So the next thing, and this also gives me points that I can extend from. So I can go back to home, I can go to line, and it doesn't matter if I'm in center or not, I can change it. So I'm going to draw me a line down to here. I'm going to draw a line from here down, and you're like, well, why didn't you just hover? And then, well, sometimes I don't. And I'm going to draw this one down because it only goes to here. Now, some of you guys will draw this circle and stop here. Some of you will draw it all the way through. If you are not given a depth as a note somewhere on your drawing, then you assume that the hole goes all the way through. So just remember that, and it'll help you out in the future. There would be a note that has a little depth symbol that kind of looks like well, basically a depth symbol. It kind of looks like this. Okay, and then it would have a number after it, and that would be after the diameter of your circle for this hole. That would tell you that it went so far down and stopped. But we don't have that on here, okay? We don't have that symbol, therefore we assume, even though you're not supposed to assume, that this hole goes all the way through. Alright? Now, I used a different layer to draw these on, so I'm just going to pick these two lines, change them to object because that's where they need to be. I'm going to hit escape. Then I'm going to go to trim, and I'm going to pick those 3 lines right there, and I'm going to, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut all of them off. Okay. The next thing I need to do, which I forgot to go back and hit this, get rid of that. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick, well, actually I'm going to go ahead and pick all 4 of these lines. I'm going to put them on the right layer. They're supposed to be hidden, okay? See? Now, this was complete. This one needs to be trimmed off, so we'll trim it. And there you go. Alright, this view is almost done. This view is really close. And so now, well, here, first of all, I'm on the centerline layer again. So I'm already on there. So I'm going to go to annotate. I'm going to pick center line this time. Now, the center marks, I get people to use center marks, but then they don't come in here and use the center line command. And this thing is awesome because you just pick these 2 lines and boom, there it is. It's great. Okay, so this is almost done. This one's almost done. Let's work on our 3rd view. So like I said, we're going to do the right side view. I showed you earlier, there's a little notch in here, and it's 20 up. And it is 15 over, looks like, and then 40 to the next spot. So they're actually measuring from the back, which is here, but I think it's supposed to be centered, so let's see how it works out. So if we go into offset and it's 15, and then it's 40, and you're like, well, why didn't you do your little trick? I'm like, you know, it doesn't matter. You can do it either way. So I'm going to trim these up. Alright, so there's my notch. I'm going to go ahead and go back home. I'm going to change this to hidden, and I'm going to draw me a line, and I'm going to project from here over to here, like so, and I'm going to trim it up. There's more than one way to get to Rome, like Mr. Anderson says. You know, it's not wrong, it's just different. So there's multiple ways to do this. But like I said, I'm working on each drawing, you know, each view, getting it so far, and then I go work on another view until I need to find something else. And you'll notice that instead of trying to, you know, measure this stuff off, where you see it as solid lines, you draw it in there and then project it. Okay? It's just like, I'm going to go to my object layer. See, I'm getting better at thinking, for some reason, that I need to go in and see, look, I'm just putting these lines in because that's where they go, and you'll notice that this line is solid here. See, if I drew a left-sided view, you know, that's this corner here. If I looked from over on this side, it would be a hidden line. Well, over here, I see both edges, so they're both solid. Alright, so actually, on this one here, I can get rid of those two lines because this boss does not go all the way to the edge, as you can see. Okay, so I've got that. I've got on a little notch here. Well, now that I've got the notch in, I can project it up to this view. So let's show you how this miter line view works. So we're going to project up and over, and then we're going to come from our top view down. So I'm going to go to line. Actually, I'm going to change it to hidden because I can and I need to. And I'm going to just draw the line up to where it hits the miter line, pick, and I'm going to bring it over to here. I'm going to do the same thing here. Bring it up, bring it over, and pick. And then I'm going to go into trim, and I'm going to trim this off. And that, my friends, is the top view. I'm pretty sure we're good. Nothing missing that I can think of. Looks good. This view is actually completed as well. So the last thing we have left is this guy over here. Now, something you want to remember is try to remember to not have anything else selected when you decide you want to delete something like that. So let me just show you what I'm saying. So let's say that I had selected this, and then I thought, and I had done something with it, and then I thought, oh yeah, I need to get rid of these two. Oops, guess what? I just deleted something I didn't need to. But there's always Control Z, right? There's also undo, U, enter. And then your third option is OOPS. Now, oops will work on the last thing that you deleted, even if you are 3 commands or 2 commands or 15 commands. Oh shoot, I shouldn't have erased that. If you type in oops, guess what? It brings up the last thing that you deleted. So, works. Alright, I'm going to go to change this to object, and I'm going to go to line, and I'm going to project this one over and down, and it goes to just right here. And then I'm going to draw this one over and down, and it goes to right here. And then I'm going to type in oops just to show you what happens with oops. See, I did something else and then I went back. So it's just another way of getting stuff back without having to undo everything that you've already done, which sometimes can be more of a hassle than if you just redrew it. Alright, so I'm going to go into trim, and I'm sorry if that confused you for some reason. I hope it didn't. Alright, so this is the outline here, but you got to remember, it's not just the outline of the object. We need hidden lines, center lines, all this good stuff, okay? So I don't have anything else selected, and I wanted to get rid of those. So I've got that. The next thing I want to do is I'm actually going to go to Object. I'm going to go up to my Layers, Hidden. See, I'm getting better because a lot of times I just forget and I just start drawing. So this is the hole that goes over and down. It doesn't go all the way to there, but it does go to right there. And then I have one that goes from here, goes all the way down here, but okay, let's see. And see, what I used to do is, before I had this center line option here, I would draw my center line and then maybe offset over, or I might project all three of them over, down and over, and put in my center line. Yeah, you can do that too. There's more than one way, like I said. So we're going to trim, get rid of those two lines. Okay. Now, like I said, I have some people, they will draw this where they have this just going to here. If you draw it that way, guess what? I'm not going to count it wrong, because you, at this point in time in your drafting knowledge, may not be aware that is how it works. You know, that you need a depth symbol to know that it doesn't go all the way through. And unfortunately, as all books are, you know, sometimes they leave things out that are kind of important, and that's okay. Alright, so I don't need these two. I don't have anything else selected. For some reason, I'm on top of it right now. Waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Okay, so this circle and this circle are not the same size. Okay, so this hole and this hole are definitely not the same size. So when I project them over, they're not going to line up with these two lines. Okay, so I'm going to go to line again, and I'm going to project over and down, and that one goes to the same place. And you know, maybe this is why people get confused on it, and they think, oh well, it can't go all the way down there or something. So I'm going to use trim, and I'm going to get rid of these two outside ones, because, and yes, you can have something that looks like this. It's still right. I mean, it's just the way it is. Let's see. Let's go ahead and get rid of these two lines. Now we're going to go back, and I'm going to go to center, and I'm going to go to annotate, and I'm going to use my center line, and I want to pick this and this. There you go. Alright, so let's look at our views. They look pretty good. Let me see. So I've got this hole here, which is represented with these hidden lines. You come down, they line up. This circle is this boss coming down here. This line lines up with this surface. This line goes here. Hidden lines, like I said, for this hole. And then this corner here is this line coming up. This is the same as these two lines here. Come over to the side view. This is the same as this. This and this line up. These two line up. Notice that the views, they're all lined up. Do you know why? It's kind of obvious. You know, I have some people that they will draw these individual views, either line them up straight across or have them lined up in some weird configuration. And I'm like, look, they all have to be aligned so that you can you can line things up from one view to the other. That's the whole point of this. It's just like if you have a cardboard box. You take a cardboard box, if you, you know, unfold the cardboard box, everything lines up. If you drew a line on one side of the cardboard box and you extended it down, it would line up with the same spot, you know, the same, you know, measurement from whichever side, you know, whichever edge, it would line up all the way down. And that's the way this is supposed to happen. Alright, so soapbox off. And I'm going to get rid of my miter line because in the grand scheme of things I don't need it, because the next step later on will be dimensioning, which we're not doing yet. So anyway, this is completed. Now the last step that I require in our program is you need to know how to put it down here on whichever one of these it needs to go on. And in this case, we said it was a metric drawing. So I'm going to click on here, and somehow, some way, I have already got this thing centered. Go figure. Who knew that I was that awesome? Now you'll notice that I have it, it doesn't have to be evenly spaced. Later on, when we do our dimensions, we'll make sure that we have enough spacing. The main thing that I want you to do is you want to activate your viewport, which you can either double click inside of here, to activate, double click outside the box somewhere to deactivate, or down here where it says paper, you can activate where it says model. It turns into model, then you click on model and it deactivates. Okay, so when it says I'm in paper space, this is where you would have drawn your, see all this stuff here, you got your fields, you've got your text, you've got your lines. All of those things are in the layout tab. And if your paper's white, that's okay. I can show you how to change it to black. That's pretty simple, and it's not something you need to worry about. The reason I have mine set up as black is because black shows up colors a whole lot better than white does, and you don't try to go blind, which is a plus, right? So the next option that we have here is, remember I did something with line type scale? I made sure that it showed up good. Well, look, it shows up pretty good here. Now, depending on what scale I have this set at, so let's click on here. And you're like, what are you talking about, scale? Well, when I activate the viewport, one of the boxes that shows up is this little scale box. And right now I have it set to 1 to 1. Well, if I changed it to 1 to 2, then it would be half scale. So it's smaller. The lines still show up okay, which is good. So that means my line type scale is pretty close. What if I did 2 to 1? So that means it's double the size. Line type scale is still good. Okay, what if I do 1 to 4? That's quarter scale, and the funny thing is the lines are still showing up okay. Crazy as it is. That doesn't always work on your inch ones, and that's fine. But I just want you to show you, these are the different scales. 1 to 1, right? If I did type in LTS, LTS, or LT scale, line type scale, and let's say I wanted to change it. Maybe I wanted it to be 24. Alright, I changed it to 24. Well, guess what? This one didn't. It changed, and it's just too big. So I don't ever use what the real scale is, what it should be. I typically make it smaller. See, 20 doesn't even work. And I think I had it on, would I have it on 12? I don't know. Let's try 16. Alright, 16 works. That's not bad. Okay. So, see, what I'm worried about is I want to make sure that my shortest center line shows up right, and that my hidden lines are long enough to where, you can tell that's what it is. And, there's not a perfect line type scale. The perfect line type scale is, it looks good to you. It looks good to me, because I'm grading it. It looks good to the person that you're drawing it for, obviously, because you might be getting paid to do this, and that's what matters, is you make a nice, good-looking product. Okay, so long story short, I've got this set up, and I've got it set. So I'm going to deactivate Wonder Twin Powers, if you're old enough to remember that. And the next thing I need to do is, okay, so I have my people set things up with fields. I set up the drawing name, I set up the date, I set up the scale. I have that in one of my other videos. No big deal. You could always go back and check my channel or If you're in this class, you will have seen them, hopefully. Anyway, so when I save this drawing, I'll go up here to save. Now, granted, I should have saved or tried to save this thing earlier, to be honest with you, because there's nothing worse than working on something and it blows up in your face, right? Here, I'm just going to click on Documents. I got all this stuff in here. Yeah, see, I've got 4.1 saved. This is 4-11, so I'm going to type it in P4-11 and hit save. And you'll notice that down here it saved it as P4-11. Yay. This needs to be updated, so how do I update? Well, one way you can do it, or the way I do it, is go to Insert, Update Fields. Just put a window around everything. It's only going to select the fields. You hit Update or hit Enter, and then now it's setting at the current date. And that'll also update this if it's not the right one. The only one that seems to automatically update is when you save it. Sometimes the dates will update. This one always updates. This one typically doesn't. Anyway, and this is my finished product. This is what I want. So anyway, this has been fun, and we'll see how this video turns out, and we'll see you on the next one.